everyone. Welcome to our Premier League panel show. Match week 13 is in the books. Some crazy games in there. So we'll talk about all that stuff. This week on the panel, it's just three of us this week. Jake is with us for Spurs. What's going on, Jake?
Nothing much. Just looking forward to going to City away next weekend.
I am sure you are. Yes, I am too, actually. That should be an interesting. Actually, that should be like a fun game to watch. I don't know if it'll turn out the way I want it to turn out and you want it to turn out, but We'll talk about that. And Sully is here, still looking at highlights of handballs. I'm assuming. How's it going?
Oh, my blood pressure's still not down yet. It was not an easy morning this morning, but looking forward to taking down one of the other former giants of the Premier League this Saturday.
Speaking of former giants of the Premier League, we have a few new contributors in the works. One to represent United, and one to represent Chelsea. So we'll be able to have like some full-scale banter going on because we've been talking behind their back for the longest time, really, to be fair. So we'll talk about.
They're kind of a dime a dozen. Did you just like pull them off the street? Like, is this just like your average soccer fan?
Well, here's the thing: the number that want to come on and talk about their team is pretty limited. You will find, and that's I think the main issue over there. Everybody is around when things are going good, but not when things are going bad. Okay, so let's get to match week 13. A lot of like big games, actually. Obviously, it started with our boys because Liverpool always plays in crack of dawn for some odd reason. City Liverpool 1-1. I've been giving my take on this game for like the last freaking like 4 or 5 days here, but I do want to hear your guys' take as the objective outsiders looking at this game. Jake, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but what did you make of the results and like overall what it means for the league?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was on the West Coast this weekend, so it was at 4:30 a.m. So wasn't waking up for that one, but I did watch the highlights, and it didn't seem like either team really went for it for the win, just based on what I saw. Which I don't know if each coach had that sort of strategy in the second half after it was tied, but I think both kind of settled for that draw, and it kind of just opens the door for the title race. And I think Arsenal, obviously being top of the league, I think it's a 3-horse race at the moment, but it's still somewhat early on, and there could be other twists in the tail going forward. And I think it makes the whole league more exciting.
Yeah, good thing Alan is not on the show on the panel this week, but he did make a point. You did just miss him, Sully. He did make a point to join right before we went on air to just say they're top of the league and then leave. Like they will probably like they will be leaving the top spot shortly, probably anyway. I did actually want to ask him as like an Arsenal fan, when you see yourself on top of the league, especially after last year. I don't know like how much. I know last year that was like a lot of excitement around it. I don't know if it's a lot more cautious this year and stuff, but we'll find out next week when they're probably still on top of the league because they are playing Wolves at home, and Wolves has like a bunch of people on cards, suspensions and stuff like that. Sully, how about you? What did you make of that game and what it means?
I think this game is starting to show the cracks in City. I think this is a game that really showed how much they missed De Bruyne. I think Haaland is not as fit as he's letting on. I think Haaland is tired. Coming back, trying to carry Norway essentially by himself, in the Euro qualifiers, and then playing full Champions League schedule. They they rely on him for a lot of goals, and I think, I think the cracks are starting to show in the team. That being said, City looked way better in the first half. City looked dominant in the first half, and then for whatever reason took their foot off the gas. And when you have a team as deep as City, you can't do that. It's never a good sign if you're, again, a team like City and Trent is scoring the goal on you rather than all the offensive firepower that Liverpool has. So we'll see what happens. I think it bodes well for Allen's Gunners, but it's a long season. I think it'd be really cool to have all three, like Jake, you said, all three of those teams challenging: Liverpool, Arsenal, and City. I would not be opposed to those teams constantly flip-flopping all the way up.
See, that's funny you said that, actually, because I thought, as I was watching the game, the impression I got, and you look at the benches, right? And I mean, both teams have injuries, really, so it's not like only that. Obviously, they're missing De Bruyne, but, and Grealish was ill, which I think in Grealish language that means he had like a hangover or something like that. But
the Irish flu.
I think when you look at the squads, maybe they had a more established and like a starting 11 that was more like used to playing with each other, used to playing the system. But when you looked at the benches, it looked like Liverpool was definitely the deeper team. And I think that's why we saw that in the second half, where Liverpool was able to bring. I mean, this is not something we could do in the past, right? As Liverpool, I know, you will look on the bench, you're like, who's going to come in, Ox or Elliott? Like, you couldn't really, not that Elliott is not having a great season off the bench, but in terms of like a name to come in onto the pitch, now, you're bringing Gakpo on, you're bringing Endo on, you're bringing Diaz, and, like you're bringing these guys in that are fresh and dangerous and stuff. And I think that did kind of change the tide a little bit because, all the City players were hurt, Jake, throughout the week. We heard they didn't play in the national game, blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, everybody was on Saturday. And Pep kept them out there the entire freaking time.
Yeah, maybe putting your club team ahead of your international duties. I don't know what your opinion is on that. I know, especially the South American players do it the other way, where they love playing for their national team, even more so than their club team. So, I know Pep always keeps his cards, close to the chest. So maybe he was saying there were injuries and people weren't fit just to, not let Klopp learn any little bit about the squad fitness. But yeah, it's weird to talk about Man City and not having the depth that, they usually do. So that's something to look out for, especially as the season goes on and they're in all these competitions. I think the door is wide open for someone else to challenge them.
Yeah, Kazi says there was always a good opportunity for Ox. That was my line when Ox was there. Now I get to say it when he's playing for Besiktas in Turkey. Alan says Klopp was for once on the ball when it came to substitutions. And we did talk about this on our podcast as well. I just don't know. We criticized Klopp a lot in the past in terms of substitutions, or more like lack thereof. And kind of like that's why the wheels came off of players like Hando and Fab and stuff like that. They were literally like ran into the ground. But perhaps it was the quality of the bench. Now that he has that quality, he's using him a lot more. Is that one of like the chinks in the armor that you see, Sully? Is the depth that they're not able to replace certain players, or just overall they're not as invincible as they looked last year?
I mean, they've had consistently kind of like a let's say 15 player rotation pretty consistently throughout the last few years. The biggest loss is Mahrez. Mahrez leaving is massive. That is just unbelievable. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that losing some of those guys off the bench, some of those stalwarts for City, is going to come back to bite them. I think trying to get guys who are not as comfortable playing first team minutes is going to be a major concern for Pep going forward.
If you guys pick the horse in the race right now, who do you guys pick as the outsiders looking in? Obviously, I'm going to be biased. So, Jake, pick a horse. Who are you putting the money on?
To win it all?
Yes. Tonali's bets. Where does it go?
I mean, I still got to go with City. I think they're probably still odds favorites to win it. And even though the depth has come into question, I think if I had to pick one, I just don't feel safe taking Arsenal after last year. And I don't think Liverpool have it all together either. So I'll take a slightly banged up Man City over the other two options.
Okay. How about you, Sully?
I almost want to wait till January. I want to see what some of these teams.
You
Okay,
can't.
that's not
You
how
got
this
to pick
game
right
works.
now.
Yeah,
You
that's
gotta
okay.
go
how
right
this game works.
Newcastle United to the top. We're finding our form. No, I think I'm Jake. I'm kind of with you. It's tough to bet against City. Odegaard looks like he's kind of broken his kind of slump that he's been in. He got on the board today, so we'll see if that carries over. But it's tough. It's tough to bet against the champs. I'll believe it when I see it when City loses. So I would still say they're the betting favorite.
Have some freaking faith, people. Jesus Christ. Okay. Let's keep going over here. I guess we'll get to the Newcastle game, but I mean, before we kind of like go through the rest of the scores, we'll get to Newcastle and we'll get to the Tottenham game as well. Any score that got your guys' attention this week? We'll start with you on this one, Sully. Out of all the scores that we saw over the weekend, what was the one that you were like, oh wow?
Arsenal only beating Brentford 1-0, I think, was a
Really?
big one. I think that's a little bit of rust coming off of the international break. United putting 3 in on Everton. I didn't think United could put in 3 against anybody. So, both of those I thought were I don't want to say shocking, but kind of piqued my interest. Good for Luton also getting that Palace victory, putting in 2 against Palace. That's not a bad result for them at all.
Yeah, I mean, Everton game, I thought, that was my upset pick for the week. And I thought, especially with the news coming midweek, you kind of knew that crowd would be really on fire and stuff like that. But I mean, obviously, that early 8,000 times so far happened. So I don't know if that changes the game, or I don't know if that kind of like almost like all that stuff took away from the focus of the game and the players as well. But I personally was going to, before we go to Jake, I was going to say Luton Town. Not only it was shocking, but I thought it was kind of huge in the grand scheme of things, especially with what happens with Everton, because that really kind of takes them. I know it's only 4 or 5 points, but shit, when some of these teams only have 4 points, 4 or 5 points is a lot. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised about Luton just because Palace have not looked great recently.
That's
And
fair.
Eze now, getting hurt was not great. They did have Elise come back, which is going to be a big boost if they can get some other pieces together. But no, I'm glad Alex isn't here because I think Fulham are just they look bad. But I'm so surprised they got that win. Obviously, Willian did absolutely nothing that entire game and just stepped up to the penalty spot twice and scored, which obviously gave them that victory over Wolves. But that was my shock. I thought Wolves, looked like the better team and that they probably should have gotten more from that. But good for Fulham. They need it. They need to, stay above everyone else at the moment so they don't get into a uncomfortable situation in the second half.
Yeah, Wolves, I mean, when you watch the game, and I only watched the second half for the most part, and Wolves does look like the team that plays better and look like, they will be the ones. But, and I do want to go to a moment in that game and get your guys' take on it as well. But let's get Sully's show on the road over here, because I know he's been waiting since freaking, when was this game? Saturday or Sunday? So no, Saturday afternoon. Newcastle
All right,
4, Chelsea 1. Go ahead.
I'll be back in 15 minutes when it's done.
The clip
Just
is
put it
in.
on hold.
The clip is in right now. Oh my
Should
goodness.
put a cutout of ourselves in front of the camera and walk away and come back. Yeah.
This game was, well, I'm not gonna lie. I was shocked at how we played. Lewis Miley coming out of nowhere. 17 years old, local academy product, unbelievable. That pass he had to Isak right away for the first Newcastle goal, unbelievable. The obvious pass is the outside pass to Almiron. He does the smarter pass, the seasoned pass, tight to the middle, right for Isak to run onto. Easy goal. The foul on Sterling, that's never a foul. Like,
Here we go.
Raheem Raheem hits a beautiful free kick. It was gorgeous to watch, but that was never a free kick. That was so soft, ridiculous. I would like to know what both managers said in the locker rooms at halftime, because my goodness, it looked like Poch's assistant basically said, guys, we have this game won already. You don't need to do anything anymore. Whereas Eddie Howe lit a fire under them because Chelsea looked asleep at the wheel and Newcastle came out guns a-blazing. I mean, bizarre game. It was everything that both teams have been so far this season. Newcastle working hard, playing as a collective. Chelsea playing as a bunch of individuals. Unbelievable to see Thiago Silva, who arguably a lot of players on Chelsea had some of their worst games of the season. And Thiago Silva, you don't expect him to make mistakes like that ever. He had a couple of just howlers. And the one Joel Linton put in the back of the net. I don't know what he was thinking. Age must be catching up with him or something. But, they looked bad. Chelsea looked bad. And especially coming off of, that game against City, Newcastle thought going into this one's going to be tough. We still don't have everybody back. We're still in a lot of injury problems. However, it didn't show. I mean, we came out guns a-blazing, especially in that second half.
I find it funny that a Newcastle fan talks about Poch's assistant making the speech and then says Eddie Howe said at halftime, when your assistant is literally popping out of his pockets at all times. And I don't think Eddie Howe said shit. He was probably like, what are you saying? And then let the guy.
Jason Tyndall was just slapping guys left and right.
Jake, what do you make of that? I mean, is this what we're going to get with Chelsea for the most part? I mean, we know going away to Newcastle, and that's why, I think a lot of Liverpool fans, for example, when we talk about this 1-1 win on paper, we've gone through a really tough schedule. And one of those games is like Newcastle away, for example. We've gone to Chelsea away. We've gone to Spurs away. So when you look at those, we know that going away to Newcastle is always going to be tough, regardless of their injury issues and, the referees and all that kind of stuff that Newcastle likes to complain about. But do you think with Chelsea is this like a box of chocolates thing we got to get going with them every week?
Absolutely. I think we've seen it throughout the season so far. I mean, there hasn't been any huge changes to their lineup all season, and you're getting, completely different results one week from the next. So I think it's going to continue. And, if you're a gambling man, I would not bet on Chelsea for any week because you have no idea. So yeah, I can't tell you what happened to the Chelsea team before the City game and what happened to the Chelsea team before that Newcastle game, but it was two completely different things because they looked, very adequate in scoring 4 goals against Manchester City one week and then conceding 4 at Newcastle the next week. So I don't know what's going on with that team, but they're very roller coaster-esque at the moment.
Alan says Newcastle are truly sucked out with injuries. I don't give him many material, Alan. Really, it's always going to just run with it. When was the last time a team in Europe not played a substitute? I don't know. Probably when Klopp managed them. I mean, to be fair,
seriously, the 30s, World War II.
Let's take a look back at the board here real quick. That's a huge win for Bournemouth away against Sheffield, especially kind of increasing that gap. We'll look at the standings after all as well. This was an entertaining game overall. I only obviously ended up watching the highlights on this one, but Forest 2, Brighton 3. Burnley is making a strong case for even beating Everton to the bottom. Is looking more and more like it. They lose out to West Ham 2-1. Luton Town we spoke about. Brentford, Arsenal. Honestly, I knew that was going to be a tough game. It's kind of annoyed that Arsenal squeaked that one in, and especially Kai, of all people, scoring. It just makes you want to take a shower the moment you see that. Tottenham 1, Villa 2. I did not get to watch this one, so Jake, you tell us what happens.
Yeah, I'd recommend watching the highlights because scoreline definitely doesn't tell the whole story. It's one of those matches where you come out with a really weird feeling as a Spurs supporter because we played so well, especially the first 30 minutes, and created so many chances. Our highest XG output for the entire season. And, we couldn't finish any of our onside chances, because Son had 3 goals ruled out for offside, which was a bummer, but, correct calls and just got to make your runs better. But, we played well, didn't convert, and Villa did. So you got to give them their props there. Bentancur coming back from an injury, and then 20 minutes in, Matty Cash makes a stupid challenge, a very dangerous challenge, and he's out for another 2.5 months. So just a real bummer for Spurs on the injury front. I know everyone has their injury struggles, but it was talked about Spurs even before the injuries that their first 11 was good enough to make a run for Champions League and maybe even above that. But their depth was not there, and we're seeing that now. I'm not sure if you guys have seen a match ever where there is no center back or center defensive mid that started for a team.
Fabinho and Henderson played center back one game. Good times. Good times.
But yeah, those are center defensive mids though. We had fullbacks. We had fullbacks play as center backs, and we had 3 attack-minded center mids. So it was insane.
But does the gameplay give you hope? Still,
absolutely.
I mean, knowing that, or okay.
The fact that we can create those chances and play, well with those players on the pitch, it just gives me hope for when we have everyone healthy. I think that game's if we have our first 11, no injuries, that game's 4-0. I think we put that away. And I think that's in the first half, because we had all those chances, and we were just, which I think part of that was just Postecoglou saying, we have no defense. Like, we have Royale and Davies playing center back right now. Let's just go out and attack so they don't have any chances to attack because we're taking the ball to them. So I like that approach rather than playing it safe and then, trying to play a negative football and try to get a result. Obviously, I hate dropping points, and I want to be in that top 4 conversation still. But I think we have to wait until we get those players back, and we'll make a surge at the end of the season.
Alan says, "Why is everything not in focus?" The sad news, Alan, is this is actually how we look. So do not, as they say in the old days, do not adjust your TV settings. This is how we look. You don't have to. By the way, yes,
Alan's using that Arsenal VAR system. That's why everything is all weird.
Speaking of the Spurs game, I got to give a shout out to my guy over here because I did hear about this game. We were away actually. And I don't know if you guys run into this, actually. I know Sully does, because this is why I kind of like Sully's on the show now, because he ran into Mateusz, and the soccer thing kind of like bonded him. But so we went to, my wife's a Colts fan, so we went to Indianapolis to a Colts game. And before the game, we were at this pre-match ordeal. Thumbs down to Colts? Or, yeah, I mean, she was more like a Manning and Edgar and James fan, to be honest with you, but it has grown on her. So, but I wanted to see the Dome and stuff, so it's like whatever. She came with me to the 49ers game, so returned the favor. We went there, made like a weekend of it, and so we were at this thing in the morning about it's like an NFL hosted, all you can eat and drink. You get smashed before you go to the game, so you don't have to pay like $25 for beer, kind of a deal. So we're over there. There's like a ton of people and stuff. You're constantly eating, drinking. And there was this kid, and I was actually watching on my phone. I had the Fenerbahce game on, sitting on the table as I was waiting for like Angie. And I saw he looked at my phone. So this family came in and sat next to us. It's like these long tables. And he looked at my phone. And I could see him like saying something to his mom who's like next to me. And I thought he was talking, the paranoia of a soccer fan in the US, right? I thought he was talking shit about me watching soccer at like a football, like a pre-match event kind of thing. But it turns out my phone holder is like a Liverpool one. So he was actually more talking shit about Liverpool. He was more talking shit about the fact that I was like a Liverpool fan. But it was pretty awesome. We started talking. He's a Spurs fan. So like we talked about, he actually was the one who told me. I totally forgot that the game was in the morning, that they lost and they played a lot better and stuff like that. And it's so odd, Sully, because I know like that's how you ended up over here. I don't know if you guys get the same experience, but it was an awesome conversation. He definitely knows his stuff. And then, he subscribed right away. So hopefully he's watching live. We'll like watch it tomorrow sometime. But it's like a weird, like we're like in this little secret club or something like that. Sometimes it feels like, and you find somebody in soccer and it's just like this long lost friend from like 10 years ago. He's like, he gets me, he understands my language, kind of thing. Because you met Mateusz the same way, and that's pretty much why we have you on the show.
100%. Yeah. He actually went to high school with my wife, and we got our wedding bands from him at a jewelry shop in our hometown and stuff. And I came in wearing a Kieran Trippier jersey, and he was like, "Hey, sidebar, I have this show that I do. I'd really like you to come on there." And like, my wife's trying to pick out her rings and stuff, and me and Mateusz are just talking the whole time. It's like, "Yep, honey, we'll get to that in a second. Well, we've got business we got to conduct right now."
Yes, we're getting married. How about that back line, though?
Yes. Yes. What are you gonna do without Tonali? I don't know, Mateusz. I don't know.
Do you have this in a white gold, though?
Yes.
How about Villa? Let me ask you that, Sully. Are they for real? I know they had like a good record at home, and Emery can set his team up to play, especially against like top teams. He knows how to play against top teams and break them down. Are they for real? Where will they end up?
Until I think Newcastle beat them 5-1 opening week of the season, so I still kind of have that in the back of my mind. But since then, they've been on a roll, and until they drop a bunch of games consecutively, I think they're for real. I mean, I think Conte I think their coach has completely turned around what they're trying to do. I will say Spurs plays the anti-Newcastle style of soccer when you get into the injuries. We're injured, everybody go up. Newcastle, we're injured, don't go past midfield. So it's very interesting to watch. Like, I have a feeling when we play Spurs, Jake, our game is going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be chaotic, to say the least.
I think that's what any game with Spurs, though, right? Because just the way they play. I haven't watched a lot of them, but I probably like 3 or 4 games so far I watched them this season, and I feel like every game they're in feels like a basketball game.
It borderline reminds me of the old Leeds teams. With was it Bielsa? It reminds me of his coaching style, which I'm here for. Like, when it works, it's amazing. When it doesn't work, it's still amazing to watch. So,
but Jake, does it need those center backs to make that tick?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll take that Leeds thing as a compliment and forget the fact that experiment failed. But it reminds me more of like Pochettino's first season, where it was, a little chaotic, but people could kind of see the good parts in it. And it ended up being, good overall, and he hit a great tenure there. So, yeah, obviously without Romero next game against City for the last game of his suspension. And then after that, we have West Ham and Newcastle. So I think, Man City game is kind of a free hit. Anything can go in there in that one. I'm not really expecting anything from that. But then West Ham, I think, and Newcastle are both at home. And I think those are the ones, we have a slightly better lineup, and you have an actual center back who knows how to play a high line and, doesn't give up a 45 plus 7 minute header from Pau Torres in the first half, and a shot from the 18-yard box from Ollie Watkins in the second half. So I think those are the two matches that are going to be pivotal for Spurs. I don't think we, focus on the fact that if we lose against City, it's 4 in a row, 4 losses. I think we, have to focus on West Ham and Newcastle when we have a slightly better lineup, and we go from there.
So, like, I know, when we first started the show and beginning of the year, like when we were talking about it, it doesn't have, you didn't expect them to do extremely well, and it was kind of like a first step in the building process, and you guys were looking for an improvement. But the way it started, and obviously was very promising. So now, looking at it now, a third way into the season, and with all that's given with the people above you and underneath you and stuff, what do you think? What is your realistic expectation of this is probably where we're going to end up?
Yeah, I think we're fighting for 4th or 5th, especially with 5th being Champions League based on the coefficient for next season. But but I don't think if you gave a Spurs fan at the beginning of the season, 4 points off top at this stage of the season, people would be like, yeah, absolutely, bite your arm off, because it feels bad because we lost our last three, but to lose your last three and still be 4 points off top, that's that's not bad at all. And I think if we get these players back closer to middle January than late January, and get back into form, I think 4th and 5th are realistic spots for us.
Okay, let me flip that though on you. I know, like, if I told you in the beginning of the season that you guys end up 6th,
Sure.
you would probably still take it as an improvement and say, like, what do we do though, and what would we improve, blah blah blah. But if you finish 6th now, would that be a huge disappointment, knowing how it kind of started?
I mean, it's not really a trait of soccer fans, especially Premier League fans, to look at the big picture. So obviously, most people will be like, yes, that's a disappointment because we were top of the league for so long to begin the season. But no, at a whole, I think 6th place, losing our best ever player at the beginning of the season with a completely new style of play from this manager. I think as long as we continue to look like we did against Villa, playing attacking football like that and creating chances every game, it's fun to watch. I had a good time watching that game and, had a sour taste in my mouth because of the loss. But I think I should not be disappointed. I might be disappointed, but I should not be disappointed.
Your therapist would be proud. That sounded like a nice self-therapy going over there. Alan says he's joining us via YouTube over here that they are on top of the league, and this message will self-destruct in the next month or so. I'm assuming. I mean, it's going to self-destruct now, but in the next month or so, the whole phrase, I think, will self-destruct. But we'll get to that. Okay, let's go back to the standings with you, Sully. Newcastle, after last season, I would think most expected to be higher than 7 right now, right? Third way to the season.
Yeah, I think we expect to be in that 4 to 6 range. We're obviously not going to contend for the title this season. It'll be very interesting, going off what Jake said. Where can Tottenham sort of just stop the bleeding? Are Villa for real? And again, coin flip, what Man U team is going to show up day in and day out? So, the 3 teams that are ahead of us in terms of Champions League spots, I'm not too concerned about. Now, I will say I did not realize necessarily that Liverpool and Villa are tied on points.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane. That is insane.
The craziest thing is we played them, and I can probably say that was the easiest win, the most I don't want to say easy win, but as a fan watching, that's probably the most comfortable I watched Liverpool win a game this season, which is really odd because I thought it was going to be a very tough game and we beat them 3-0 at Anfield. But yeah, it is crazy that they are where they are at in terms of like the accumulated points.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like a good team wins the games they're supposed to win. They only need to win a handful of those coin toss games to win everything. So it'll be interesting to see. Brighton seems like they're just in free fall. West Ham, I'm not concerned about. So, it's interesting to see how this table is shaking out. Like Tottenham, Newcastle, you could throw Brighton in there, Villa. That sort of seems like, like the injured club. Like how many Band-Aids can we put on this to keep us in this top half of the table? So we will see. Again, I think January is going to be a very, very interesting time for the Prem. And I also think, once the coach dominoes start falling, I think that will also change things up. I would not be shocked if we kind of get like a mid-season shakeup across the table post Christmas break.
But I'm looking at the top of the table there, maybe Ten Hag, and I don't see that happening mid-season. Maybe. I mean, I don't see a lot of managers that will go anywhere unless your manager gets like overthrown by the assistant. I don't see anybody like changing managers there.
Brighton, I could see. Let me pull up the rest of that table because I got that up also. Brighton, I could see changing. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Chelsea. Does Chelsea bring in another manager? Wolves, be interesting to see. Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most compelling end of the season runs I think we've had in a long time. I think this is going to come down very close to the wire and be entertaining the whole way. Now, Timogen, with what you were saying about Burnley and stuff, do you think there's any chance? Oh, now I'm blanking on his name. Company. Do you think Company leaves Burnley mid-season to take over a higher level Prem team? Or,
I mean, which team is going to be like, hey, I know we're not doing well. You know what'll be good? We'll bring this guy.
Yeah. It's so crazy it might just work. I could see Todd Bowley pulling something like that. But, yeah, I think we will have a better shakeout after Christmas to see where teams are going to finish in a lasting position.
I mean, honestly, for Villa, we're about to find out a lot about them because obviously they play tomorrow, and then they play away Bournemouth. I mean, in this tight area where there's like games in every 3 days, they go away to Bournemouth. Then they have at home, and they're really good at home. But they have City on the 6th, and then they have Arsenal on the 9th. They play. So I think by the 10th, we'll realize that you will probably have a better answer because honestly, once they get past those, then they start playing like Sheffield United, Burnley, Manchester United, like teams like that. That is like the schedule gets a lot easier. So it will be interesting to see how they come out of that and how they get go. I mean, I think it's been like a good story overall. It's definitely interesting to see. Bottom of the league there, looking at it, that's why I said like Bournemouth, that was a huge win. I think same for Luton. Is this the bottom three we will see now pretty much third way into the season? Jake, do you see if somebody climbs out of there, who climbs out of there?
I think it's Everton. I think if you look at their points per game, not including the deduction, I think they're going to be safe. I mean, Luton and Bournemouth are putting a bit of space in between the others, which is nice for them. But I do think it's going to be Luton at the end, and it's just going to be the three coming up go right back down, which I don't like for the game. I like to see a steady rotation where new faces come in each year, but it's just they don't look like they're Premier League quality. Yeah. And it's just a pretty big gap. And I don't know, maybe someone surprises like Bournemouth or Forest start to falter. Obviously, I mentioned Fulham not looking good, and if they struggle, they could definitely stutter on those 15 points they're on. But I don't know. I think Everton have enough quality, and Dyche is doing enough good things where they'll get enough points to climb out of that bottom three.
I think they have that. I mean, I hate douche, but he knows at least how to get single points from games. Mm-hmm. And when you're going against teams that only muster like 4 or 5 points in 13, a point a game can get you like a long way. So I guess they do have that. I mean, looking at that though, Everton goes to Forest next, and then they have Newcastle at home. Then they have Chelsea at home. Then they go to Burnley, which could be a huge, huge game in terms of like how that pans out. And obviously, like afterwards they have the quarterfinal of the FL Cup, but I'm sure they don't care as much about the final yet. Okay, couple of talking points I want to get to and get your guys' take. I mean, I hate to do this and rub some more salt into the wound over here, but let's talk handballs. Coming from the body, coming from your butts, is it a handball or is it not? I just made that up, actually. That was not even like practice. So, Sully, if it's coming from your body, as overall, without being in the Newcastle game and Mbappe and PSG and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
If it's coming from the body, like how would you like it called or how would you want it set so that you're like, you know what, it's fair either way?
Well, that's Kai Havertz right there, so he should be sent off every single time he touches the ball, no matter what. Shouldn't see the field ever. If it touches the body and pops up, what are you supposed to do? Like, if it hits your body first and then goes to your arm, I think you should indirect kick. I've seen a lot of talk about that, bringing back more sort of indirect kicks. Like, it's an inverted handball. Yes, you use your arm to control it in theory, but if it hits your body, what are you supposed to do? Especially with the velocity, with the spin on a ball, takes a ricochet off your side, comes up to your hand. You've got no chance. There's no intention behind it. Now I do think also, and sorry, I'm gonna get on the cheating Frenchman here in a second, but what's driving me nuts is the idea of, that I think it also matters where the ball comes in from. I think you have to look at the much larger picture of the field rather than just what the individual player is doing. If it's an arm stopping a cross, I think that should be less egregious than an arm, like Luis Suarez blocking the goal against was that Ghana, the Ivory Coast, in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I think those are two different things. That's apples and oranges right there. So I think you have to look at the entirety of the play when you pass judgment on it. But if it comes off your body, shouldn't be a handball, or
So
at least
you're
not a
only
penalty
looking
kick.
at intent then. That's it.
Yes, I would say intent is the biggest thing in conjunction with what is possible out of the play that was disrupted by the handball.
Yeah, see, that's the problem though. Then I think I understand, and I don't think this is the part where I don't think any of us were going to agree on this, but I want to get your guys' takes on it, because here's the thing. I understand, and we got into this. I think I was the only one saying that should be a freaking penalty at the Newcastle game, because I don't care if it's coming from the body. I think when a defender has that arm, do not get your arm that wide. Like, what can you do? There's a reason why defenders are running around like they don't have any arms. They have it behind their back. And the reason I say that is, otherwise it's impossible. Then you're opening a huge gray area when we say intent, which I agree. I wish, but I don't trust it, because I can tell you myself that I have been taught, especially like in the earlier years, as a defender, and I played a sweeper, a center back, and these ball rules were not as strict then. Like, it wasn't an immediate red or anything like that if it was intentional. If a ball is coming, it's like rainy, whatever, and you are afraid that it's going to bounce from your chest, you raise your arms, because worst case scenario, this is what you're getting. Well, that's intentional. I used to do that shit on purpose. You know what I mean? So a normal person, they're like, but what is he supposed to do with your arms? I can't jump like this, but I can still jump without having my arms in a place where it helps me control the ball and therefore affecting the play. And I think because I played the game so cynical and dirty all these years, I always think of these things. I'm going to come to the next one too. This is why I'm so cynical with the rules. Jake, where are you at? Because you definitely didn't like it when I said it should be a penalty. And you're not alone. I'm pretty much alone on this one, I think. But
yeah, I wasn't sure there was anyone on the planet other than the one man sitting in the VAR room. But I guess
who's not sitting in the VAR room for the matches today? UEFA bumped him out. They said you cannot do the was it the Real Sociedad?
He's joining the pod actually shortly. I have
a
guest this week. Yeah.
Good.
That's probably just a coincidence. Yeah. No, I've been a firm believer ever since June 1st, 2019, that if a ball hits one part of your body
and then, we're gonna get there.
Then goes to the arm, it should not be a penalty, because once what are you supposed to do once it hits something right here, and there's it's just, you can't control.
What if your arm is like this? Like, I don't know, Sissoko.
He was pointing. I don't know. Where it's like, if it's truly unnatural and you're you got both hands up like this and it hits your thigh and then goes up to that, sure. I don't know. But for the instances for the Arsenal one and the Newcastle one, they're moving, they're running. They have to have their arms. You can't run like this and be a Premier League player. So I think that's natural enough where you can say no penalty. I mean,
well, let me ask you this, because this happens, because we were talking about this in the morning show as well. So you're running, right? I mean, if you're running, you're not just running with one arm and then it comes down to the body. It goes back and forth. If you're running and I cross the ball and it goes to the hand that's behind you, it's a penalty because it's away from your body. But that's still a natural position, isn't it? You can't run just like this.
It shouldn't be.
And this is what I'm like torn, because then if we go back to the intent your way, Sully, there is no intent, so we keep playing there. But at the same time, intent is so hard to judge, I guess, is the problem.
Or like, again, sort of narrow it down. If it hits the body, no matter what, boom, blanket statement across. You might get some calls that go the other way, and it might be very obvious that it bounces off and a player like smacks it down or something after it comes off their chest. But I think there's more to it than just that. Or, you don't call it a penalty right away. You call it an indirect free kick. You call it a direct free kick. You allow,
indirect free kicks have disappeared now that you mention it. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw one.
And I coach high school soccer. Anytime there's an indirect free kick, there's kind of like a murmur around the bench. It's like, oh, whoa, this is like the great white buffalo we're seeing like out on the field. This.
What do we do now?
Yeah, this legendary play. So something like that, like add another dimension to the game. But how insane is it that week in and week out we're not we're talking about the beautiful game, but we're also talking about these massive blunders that are costing results. And this goes back to the last show, the idea of there's too much money in this game for this to be this bad. That referee during the Newcastle game called a great game. That was one of the best officiated games I've seen in a long time. Players rushing him.
He's a good ref. I mean,
he's a great ref. And I would like to know what was said into his earpiece to call for the VAR check. That's one thing I really like about rugby. You hear the entire conversation between the review official and the official on the field. I want to know what was said. I want to know what was said to him that changed his mind. And now all of a sudden, this is a PK.
He was probably told, like, good process, boys, or something like that. It's probably what's happening in the background.
The Qataris have your family. That's probably what it was.
By the way, we were talking about this morning show, too, because Gordo said he has many Newcastle fans. You guys can't use this whole Qatar thing anymore with your new owners and stuff, right? That has expired.
So I have been sitting on this one for a little bit. I've been sitting on this one for a little bit. When little old Newcastle gets the oil money, now all of a sudden you can't loan players from the Saudi Premier League to a Premier League team when we're all injured. I'm glad that did not go through. I don't think we're going to take advantage of it, but it seems like old money trying to keep new money out. That's what it really feels
Speaking
like.
of that, by the way, I mean, we were talking about this, Jake. I don't know if you saw who voted for it. Why the hell is Everton voting for this?
They're like, please get new owners. Please get new owners.
That could, I never thought of that. That could be like a premature vote. Okay, let me ask you guys this one and get your guys' take on this, because this is one that bugs me a lot. I don't know if you guys saw this at all or not. This is from, obviously, this week's Fulham Wolves game. This is around like the 80th minute or so, I think. So there's a foul on Vinicius, seen over here getting his forehead kissed by the Wolves player. So he's on the ground, and then he suddenly basically comes up and basically pretty much headbutts him. Makes contact with his head. Not a huge one, but he basically touches his head with his forehead. You can see over here. Because the Wolves player is just standing there. He gets up literally to him and hits him on the head. Nothing comes out of it, Jake, because the Wolves player just stands there and says, "What the hell? Are you guys seeing this?" But we all know if the Wolves player was Neymar, or really, forget Neymar, probably 90% of other players, he's probably like falling like he was shot by a sniper. And the Fulham player is getting a red card. They did not get a red card because the other player did not overreact. Isn't this just feeding the beast?
I agree that those reactions do lead to red cards more often. I think there was a challenge in the Benfica game today that looked like a yellow card to me, but the guy that got fouled did about 7 rolls after he went to the ground. So I think it was always a red card after you pass the 6th roll. It's a red card. So I think it would have been looked at closely if the Wolves player did go down and clutch his face and roll around and check for blood every 2 seconds. But no, in this instance, I think it's just on the cusp. He comes up from a standing position, and there isn't a big force forward. I would say he knows that he's making contact when he's going up, absolutely. But I think someone on Everton 3 or 4 years ago had a very similar occurrence where they went up and then just did one slight forward movement, and it might have been Richarlison, honestly.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And it was just enough where they're yeah, that's a red card. So it's slim margins. I don't know. I think if the referee was watching it and the line judge is there and they don't call on the field, maybe keep it as a yellow. But I don't know. That's not getting overturned if it's red on the field, obviously.
And that's the problem I have with it is, it makes the players say 3 more rolls and I got this guy a red card.
Yeah.
So they keep going, whereas it shouldn't matter how many times he's rolling or what the guy who just got pretty much headbutted, soft or not, either way. You can do a little slap on the face. That's a red card too. It doesn't have to hurt to be a red card. Doesn't that kind of make these players do things, Sully, that at the end of the day gives soccer a bad name? And now in the States over here, I think we're seeing a lot more and more of it, especially in the NBA. And even in the vicious, toughest sport of them all, in football, where, quarterbacks are no, after anything so that it's a roughing the passer.
No, I think you're 100% correct. What I would actually like to see is the old WWE where they have the razor blade in their wrist tape and give themselves a quick forehead gash and hey, look, red for red right there. I think that's what we should be doing. But no, I think you're completely correct. Now, I will say it does always endear me to a player when they don't do that. If I'm playing and there's something egregious and a tackle that could be a flop, but instead my guy gets back up and is in the face of somebody else, that endears me. And so I think, it's part of the mind game of the sport. When do you take the card to get the numerical advantage, or when do you sort of buck up to give your team a little bit extra? And, it obviously didn't pay off for Wolves. They ended up losing that game. Probably would have been smarter to go down and take the card. Could have been a possible red. But I think it's gamesmanship. I think it's way less than it used to be. Some of those early 2000s games or I should say mid 2000s were atrocious when it came to diving. But yeah, I mean, the other sports are now finally getting on the ball and seeing what we've been dealing with for a long time. And I honestly think soccer has done a better, it's not perfect by any means, but having watched a fair amount of NBA this season, the flopping is unbelievable. And especially if you are a big name player, you might as well just go down and put your arms up. You look like one of the wacky inflatable guys in front of a car dealership. Yeah, you do that, it's a technical foul right away. And I think that is one thing our game has gotten better at is the diving. I think it is better overall. Is it perfect? Not at all. but I think other sports are dealing with it in a much worse way and having to kind of come to grips with like, oh, this is a viable tactic. We need to stay on top of this.
But to be honest, like I don't think anybody. I've never gone to my teammate and be like, "Hey, man, way to be a stand-up guy." On that one, I'm like, "Bro, you could have gotten him a red."
Yeah,
Like, I have never acknowledged the guy like taking that. But I mean, to us as fans, yeah, you're like, "Hey, man, that's pretty cool that he didn't." But then Vinicius could have scored the winner. He didn't score the winner, but it's like good guys finish last kind of a thing. I mean, it happens in the NBA as well. I mean, I'll be honest, like I say, it goes back to me being a cynical asshole. But I mean, I have like two daughters who play the game, and they were both like petite players, and sometimes they would get like fouled, but not like still called because they were already petite. And I taught them, especially like Jasmine, to like, I'm like, dude, you gotta vocalize the fall. You gotta vocalize the foul. And if you do, you get the call every single time. If you fall with the as opposed to just falling like a sack of potatoes, you're gonna get the call. And I guess the problem is, I know it's mind games that you're taking advantage of the ref being human and falling for it. But yeah, I saw that and I was like, man, I'm so torn because you want to really acknowledge, like you're saying, Sully, and say, good job for the guy who's the Wolves player. But at the same time, you're like, dude, you could have cost your team a game by taking the high road.
Just take a page out of Newcastle's playbook and just do drive-by elbows from here on out for the season. Like, don't even get into the face-to-face. Just hit them as you're going by.
That's WWE.
Yes.
I think you gotta have Saudi owners to get away with that shit, though. So I don't know about that. Okay, let's take a look at the week ahead. Let's see. Oh, obviously, Newcastle United. Onana might be in goal, so I guess take the over under on how many goals you guys will score.
Could we lend them one of like the four keepers we're keeping on our bench?
Give them Karius. I mean,
yeah, for real. Like we're just putting keepers on the bench to fill out the bench. Like I think this could get ugly quick. I think this one could also end with United not finishing with 11 men on the field. I really think that. I think the midfield battle, particularly between Casemiro versus Joe Linton and Bruno Guimaraes, it's going to be very, very interesting. Isak's just going to walk past Maguire. I mean, it's not even going to be a contest. I think that's 3-0 easily.
Who do you have on that one, Jake? Does today's game, you think, with United, does that hurt it even more, or is that like this is a good game to come back because it's a big game away Newcastle?
Yeah, I think, going to Istanbul and a rainy night and coming back and having to play Newcastle, not fun. So I think I think Sully's got the right beat on this one, and it's probably going to be a pretty easy Newcastle victory.
I think so too.
With that as well, Newcastle has played very, very well after decisions that have not gone their way. Losses, draws. We usually have a bounce back game. We're pretty good in terms of the bounce back game.
How many games are you looking at over here? Because I know for a god fact you're not looking at the Arsenal game.
I think it's every game for them.
Yeah, it's either or.
Made it sound like there's so many victims of so many bad calls.
Us against the world.
I like that mentality. Alex is not here. I know he would say, I know already what Alex is going to say. These are not the games that's going to define Fulham and take the high road on this one. But, I mean, I'm hoping Liverpool can come out. I guess it depends on what happens tomorrow as well. But I'm assuming this is like 3 points for Liverpool unless they do something stupid. I mean, Jake, you've seen Fulham play just this week. They can be dangerous on the counter. They have some speed, but it feels like they just don't have the defending. Like, we talk about like Everton, for example. Sometimes they can just buckle down and defend. It's almost like Fulham is a bit too cool for that, and they almost like go against it.
Yeah, it's not really in their DNA at the moment. So I think that's not really a tough one for you guys. I think you brush them aside pretty quickly.
Yeah, see, I never want to say that because it always backfires, so I just take the...
I'll say it for you, don't worry.
Yeah. Thanks, man, I appreciate it. Better you than me, so I won't be responsible. Sully, what do you have?
I think this is going to be a classic Nunez chaos game. I think Nunez is going to go wild against Fulham. Yeah, I think 3-1 comfortably Liverpool.
Okay, the big one. City, Tottenham. Sully, we'll start with you on this one as Jake composes himself on the back line. What do you have for this game? Is there any hope of Spurs stealing something from City?
Reverse parking the bus. Put the bus in full gear. Brick on the gas pedal. Let's go forward. 6-0 Spurs. No.
Eric Dyer up top.
Yes. And we're not playing box to box. We're staying in their box. So I don't see any way Tottenham can win this game. I think City is going to do what City does. I think that this could be a quick one. Yeah, Alan in the chat saying City 4, Spurs 0. Tough to argue with that.
See, I think Spurs will get goals, but I mean, is this a game, Jake, as a Spurs fan, you're like, yeah, I love the bravery, but not this game, man?
No, I think you keep doing it. I don't see why not. We're not expecting to win it regardless, so why not go out guns blazing?
Does anything come out of it, you think? I mean, honestly, in some ways, I think Chelsea showed this too, right? Like, the best way to beat City and hold back City is go at them. If you sit back and wait, they're eventually going to pick you apart. So do you think Spurs has a shot in like stealing something by outscoring them? Because obviously that would be the only way, I would think.
Yeah, I think it could be similar to that Chelsea game. I think we could see 2-2 or 3-3, but I think it's more likely going to be 3-1 or 4-2 for the bad guys.
That doesn't make me too happy. I was hoping for a Spurs, getting some, because I don't have any hope in like Wolves this week, anything else. Okay, it's Sully's favorite segments, Tonali's picks. What do you have for the upset special this week? Let's throw the schedule back on board over here. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I don't know if like I'm not counting so that before you even try it. Brighton away at Chelsea is not really an upset special.
I'm gonna say Luton at Brentford. I think Luton might get a result there. Stay out of the relegation zone. This is a weekend for who do you want to go down? Burnley, Sheffield, Forest, Everton, Brentford, and Luton. I think this is a much more bottom of the table weekend than top of the table. So yeah, I'm gonna say Luton over Brentford. I think that should be a good one.
Not a bad shout, and I mean Everton won't like hearing it. But Jake, what do you have?
I got to stick with my guns. Last time I picked Bournemouth over Newcastle, and I'm going to go back to them for.
I haven't forgiven you for that.
A home victory over Villa.
I had the same actually. The fact that Villa is playing tomorrow, I think, could be a huge factor there because I mean we've heard Shea complain about it before in terms of like the rotation or lack thereof that Villa does in these games, and Bournemouth can be tough at home. And they can get goals. So, yeah, I think I'm going with Bournemouth as well. Any chance you guys think Wolves get something? Arsenal, they have like a couple of players. I think Lamina is like suspended as well. They were like yellow cards flying all over the place in that game, right? Yeah. Any chance you guys think, or are we going to have to deal with Alan coming up next week and saying still top of the league? Because I might call off.
Cancel the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just blame like a scheduling conflict. Nobody can win. Anybody see a chance in there? Or?
No.
I think Wolves might put up a good first 25-30 minutes and then just fold, and that'll be that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Arsenal today, and I know like that French defending was brutal, mind you, but I mean it was horrible. But yeah, they made really easy work of it. I didn't even watch the second half of the game today, but they made an easy work of it. But
I was gonna say,
any parting thoughts?
What did that game finish? I saw it was 4-0
6,
at half. Oh,
right?
jeez.
6-0.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was 5 at half, and then they kind of eased off.
I think, yeah, Arsenal was like, get ready for the weekend, like step back and have a sandwich in the bag, because yeah, it just was, that game was done. I thought the third one, heck, I mean the first one, mind you, but I mean the defending got worse and worse as it went. But yeah, some interesting games actually in the Champions League today. More yesterday than today, but that Galatasaray game, United game, which is like, to me, I can't win and I can't lose. The two teams I hate the most in the world playing each other. So it's like, I don't know. So a draw actually was good. So the ideal scenario now is United losing to Bayern at home, and then Copenhagen beating Galatasaray, and then I ride off into the sunset. I might take a week off just to celebrate that. But, any parting thoughts, Jake?
Our extensive fact check team has told me that it's Richarlison against Bournemouth 2018 was the headbutt that I referenced.
Jay's got like a producer assistant in the background and shit over there.
He's like slipping me notes, you know. But yeah, that's all I got. I've got no hope. I have very little hope going.
I've got no hope. That's not part of the self-therapy we were working on. You got to keep the hope. We just said that.
I should have hope.
Oh. How about you, Sully?
Newcastle just gonna keep the ball rolling. It's like a famous rapper once said, "You ain't got haters if you ain't popping." So we're just gonna keep up that working class work ethic.
Yeah, I
and,
hear the Saudis are huge on rap.
It was a philosopher. I think it was Socrates who actually said that. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, yep. So keep the ball rolling. Just hope our guys get back in one piece, and the youngsters keep showing what they're doing. Shout out Jamal Lascelles. Guy's been playing his butt off. Like, what a guy to have at the club.
I mean, I'll definitely be rooting for you guys this week, because I would like to see some more misery put on United. It's always a good day. And actually, that's kind of like a huge game in that part of the league, if you think about it. As we talk about, like, is Villa going to drop or Spurs going to drop? Because if only one of them drops, that leaves only one spot left for you guys, one of those two teams. So, and I think Newcastle winning this one really pushes down United. So that should be interesting. But hey, maybe if we have our newcomer next week, we'll have a United fan over here in the panel, and you guys can kind of duke it out. Hopefully there won't be any handball calls in that game.
I've got my dancing shoes ready.
I'll let our TikTok rep know on America's Scout Show to get that rolling over there. But hey, thanks to everybody. As always, give us a like, give us a share, and join us next week. We should have a pretty darn big panel going next week and a lot of good games on the board. So tune in then. Have an awesome week, everybody. Take care.